Dragon-type Pokemon are among one of the most popular Pokemon types, and the fact that all but 2 pseudo-legendary Pokemon are Dragon-type probably has something to do with that. Of these pseudo-legendary Dragon types, Garchomp is the only one to not have a gender difference between both of its forms, and Goodra is the only one that isn't a dual-type Pokemon, although of course Hisuian Goodra is part Steel-type and makes up the only regional form for a pseudo-legendary Pokemon. As for regular Dragon-type Pokemon, Dragon types have been paired with every other type in the game with the exception of Bug-type. We still don't have a single Bug and Dragon-type Pokemon, although there have been some good potential candidates in the past like Yanmega or Flygon. We did get kind of close to having a Mega Flygon in Generation 6, which could have been part Bug-type. However, one other interesting thing about Generation 6 is that it was the only generation to not introduce any new Dragon-type moves, which is unusual for a generation to just not have moves of a certain type. There's also only 2 non-damaging Dragon-type moves in the game in Dragon Dance, which increases your attack and speed, and Clangoria's Soul, which is Kommo-o's signature move, so most Dragon-type Pokemon only have access to 1 non-damaging Dragon-type move. There are, however, 29 Dragon-type moves, making up only about 3% of the total Pokemon moves, making Dragon moves the least common type of moves out there. It is a shame because Dragon-type moves are all pretty cool, and by that I mean in Generation 3, all of the Dragon-type moves used in Pokemon contests were categorized as cool moves. Luckily by Generation 3, there was a few Dragon moves to choose from, as back in Generation 1, the only Dragon-type move that did any damage in the game was Dragon Rage. Dragon Rage is a move that always does 40 damage no matter what, meaning it wouldn't give the user a same stat attack bonus and also would never do super effective damage. On top of having only the one offensive Dragon move, the only Dragon-type Pokemon in Generation 1 was the Dragonite evolutionary line, which is one reason why making Lance a Dragon-type expert in Generation 1 is weird, but then in Generation 2 they again only added one new Dragon-type Pokemon in Kingdra, introduced another signature Dragon-type trainer in Claire, who is the 8th gym leader, who also only has one Dragon-type Pokemon on her team in Kingdra, and then they also kept Lance as the champion, but didn't give him a Kingdra on his team and instead just gave him 3 Dragonites and called him the Dragon Expert. Kingdra does evolve from Seadra, a Generation 1 Pokemon, which then evolves from Horsea, while Horsea and Seadra are also technically considered Dragon-type Pokemon, as their Pokemon category is the Dragon Pokemon, which would mean that these 2 Pokemon are the only non-Dragon-type Pokemon to be Dragon Pokemon. At least Dragon-type experts in future games would feature teams that would actually have Dragon-type Pokemon, like Ryuki's team in Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. A trainer that people tend to forget about, but he does have a really cool outfit on. They also didn't introduce a Dragon-type specialist in Generation 4, which was the only time they've ever done that, as although Cynthia has a Dragon-type Pokemon on her team in Garchomp, which is also her ace Pokemon, she is not considered to be a Dragon-type expert. Every single Dragon-type expert appears later on in the game too, with many of them being Elite 4 members or just one of the last 2 gym leaders. This makes sense since Dragon-type Pokemon usually aren't available until pretty late on in the game, or in the case for Pokemon like Dragonair, they don't evolve until a very high level. Some non-Dragon-type trainers even have some pretty powerful Dragon types, like how in the Pokemon World Tournament in Pokemon Black and White 2, Fantina could have a Giratina on her team. It is part Ghost type, which makes sense because she is a Ghost type trainer after all. However, Fantina actually uses Origin Form Giratina here, even though it isn't holding the Greasiosaur, which is needed to make Giratina turn into its Origin form. It's holding a Ghost Gem instead, and on top of that you can also battle Winona here, who has a Rayquaza. Something about these gym leaders having the 3rd legendary Pokemon in their respective regions is just really cool. Also in Generation 5, you can catch a Dino. Unfortunately, you can't get one until the Victory Road, but its final form, Hydreigon, evolves level 64, which is the latest level that any Pokemon evolves in the game. When it comes to purity, there are only 13 pure Dragon-type Pokemon in the game, with the only fully evolved full Dragon types coming from Generations 5 and Generation 6. For Dragon-type Pokemon as a whole, there are 70 total Dragon types, making up 6.9% of total Pokemon, tying it with Fairy, coincidentally, as the 2nd least common Pokemon type, with Galar introducing the most amount of Dragon types in a region with 11 new Dragon type Pokemon in Sword and Shield. While Dragon type Pokemon are often seen for their sheer offense with powerhouses like Roaring Moon, Dialga, or Rayquaza, Dragon type Pokemon actually have the highest HP stat on average, along with the highest special attack stat on average. They also have the most unique Held items that boost Dragon type moves directly, which is something I never really thought about, but that does include items like the Dragon Gem, which aren't around anymore, and items that only work for specific Dragon type Pokemon like the Soul Dew does for Latios and Latias, consisting of 10 total items. Being that Dragon is only super effective against other Dragon type Pokemon, it's the only type that can never dish out a 4x super effective move, as there's no dual type Pokemon that just has the same type twice. And on the topic of taking damage, Mega Altaria is the only Dragon type Pokemon that is immune to Dragon due to its part Fairy typing. It's a shame that Mega Pokemon are gone though, since type combinations like Dragon and Fairy don't currently exist elsewhere. But one cool fact about Mega Evolution is that Dragon type is the most common type gain for a Mega Pokemon upon Mega Evolution, as Mega Charizard X, Mega Ampharos, and Mega Sceptile are 3 Pokemon that gain the Dragon typing upon Mega Evolution. Now for some Dragon type Pokemon records, Eternatus is the tallest and heaviest Dragon type Pokemon, standing at a whopping 65 feet 7 inches tall and weighing a measly 2,094.4 pounds. Eternatus Eternamax form has the highest base stat total for any Dragon type Pokemon at 1,125 base stat, which compared to a Pokemon like Garchomp, Garchomp only has 600. Gumi is the smallest Dragon type Pokemon, standing at exactly 1 foot tall, while Applin is the lightest, weighing only 1.1 pounds. When it comes to the Pokemon trading card game, Dragon type has always been pretty unique. For balancing issues, the trading card game doesn't incorporate every single type that the game incorporates and matches up some Pokemon types into other types, like how most rock and ground type Pokemon are just considered to be fighting type Pokemon, or how currently poison type Pokemon are just dark types. Up until 2012, there was no official type for Dragon in the trading card game, with many Dragon type Pokemon just being represented as colorless or normal type. They then introduced a proper Dragon typing into the trading card game with their own symbol as well, but there is still no basic Dragon type energy, making it the only type in the Pokemon trading card game to just not have a basic energy. The Dragon typing symbol in the trading card game is also this yellowish orange, which isn't consistent with its type colors in the video games. Although to be fair, Dragon's type colors in the game have never really been consistent compared to other types in the game. In Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, Dragon typing was represented by this deep purple color, then in Fire Red and Leaf Green through Generation 4, Dragon typing was listed as having this blue and red color. It then went back to this darker purple for Generations 5, 6, and 7, then in Generation 8 turned into more of a bluish color and is now currently a paler purple in Scarlet and Violet compared to the original purple we first saw in Ruby and Sapphire. Then in side series Pokemon games and spin-off games, they are sometimes represented the same way as they are in the main series games, like how they are in Pokemon Go or in the new Pokemon Snap game for the Switch. But then in Pokemon Stadium 2, the Dragon icon is just a green D, and in Rescue Team DX as well as some Japanese exclusive arcade games, the Dragon typing logo is a yellow or gold color, more similar to how it is in the trading card game. Then there's Pokemon Ranger, which just looks like this pixel art of the Jurassic Park logo, and I don't really know what they were going for with this one. If you were to compare the Dragon type logos to another type like Psychic, Psychic is a lot more consistent across main series and spin-off games, as they're all just pink with slightly different shades. In terms of main series games, it's also pretty common to see a Dragon type Pokemon on the cover of a Pokemon game, like how Reshiram and Zekrom are on the cover for Pokemon Black and White. Reshiram and Zekrom were even featured in the 2010 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City alongside Pikachu, which took place about 4 months before Pokemon Black and White released in North America. A Dragon-type legendary Pokemon that doesn't appear on the cover of a game, but probably should, is Zygarde. Zygarde didn't really get that much attention in Pokemon X and Y, or even in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and instead just had most of its story just slapped into Pokemon Sun and Moon as more of a side quest, if anything. In the manga for Pokemon Sun and Moon though, Zygarde Complete Form plays a bigger role in the story and even helps fight against Necrozma. A showdown between these two Pokemon just sounds like it'd be really cool, and it's a shame we never saw it in the games. The names for Pokemon in Spanish are the same as their English counterparts, which can cause some confusion, which was the case for Dialga when they were releasing Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. In Spanish, the word alga at the end of Dialga's name means algae, so the Spanish translation team for Pokemon suggested that they rename Dialga because it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for this Pokemon to have algae in its name, but they just kept it anyway. And those were just some Dragon-type Pokemon facts. Let me know in the comments down below what type you want me to talk about next, and also consider clicking that like button as it helps a ton, subscribing for more Pokemon videos, becoming a YouTube channel member, and with all that out of the way, thanks for watching, and bye bye.